Just in terms of your appointment, we know we had taken Minister Mkhunu through this, so we don't have to spend any time on it. The position of Chief of Staff in particular is an important position of trust, and all ministers, cabinet ministers, are given a discretion to employ a chief of staff of their choice. But you still went through a process. Just describe that briefly.
Thank you, Chairperson. I addressed this issue on my paragraph 34, from 34,
Yeah.
on my statement. Paragraph 35, Minister Mkhunu, after he was appointed, he's got a discretion in relation to the position of a chief of staff to nominate, whereby he nominated me in that position. And then the HR department subsequently took over the process, where minister does not get involved in that process. So HR department will then take over the process in terms of suitability, whether a person nominated by the minister is suitable, qualified, meet all the requirements, screening, and so forth, until the HR department will give back to the minister recommendation that the person that you nominated, he duly qualified, he passed all the screening, he passed all the assessments, relevant assessments. That's in summary, Chair, what happened.
And you deal with all of that from paragraphs 34 onwards in your statement. And you met all the relevant qualifications for the post?
I met all the requirements for the post, Chair.
Can you just take us to those qualifications?
Your microphone is far away.
Sorry, can you just take us to those qualifications which is at paragraph 13 on page 9?
Thank you, Chair. My relevant qualification, I hold a national diploma in policing. I also hold a BTech degree in policing, as well as a basic training certificate, which I've obtained in Bishop Police Academy. I also hold several of career development courses, which is detective learning program, sexual offenses investigation, crime administration system, and trained the trainer, accredited as a detective, as a qualified detective trainer.
And just talk to us again briefly from paragraph 9 onwards, your experience in the South African Police Service and also in IPID.
Yes, thank you, Chair. My relevant experience, with my experience working in the South African Police Service, whereby in 2004 I started as a detective constable, which this role also included being a qualified detective trainer, where I was training detectives. During that time, my specialist in my training to the detective was the Criminal Procedure Act, criminal law, and law of evidence. In 2010, I was then got a promotional post as a captain where I joined ICD, Independent Complaints Directorate, which is now known as IPID, which is Independent Police Investigative Directorate. Then subsequently in 2012, I was promoted as an assistant director. That is a position which I hold until I left and resigned from IPID in 2018. Then after I resigned, I took up a post in a private sector as a head of forensics, as a manager, which that is a position I held from November 2018 until the appointment as a chief of staff, which I resigned to join Minister Mkhunu as a chief of staff. Thank you, Chair.
Now, Lieutenant General Nkabinde told us that you were unemployed for a while and he secured you a job or an appointment with a security company.
Chair, after I left IPID, which is subsequent from May 2018, which I sat at home, but during that time it was under suspension until September 2018, still sitting at home. That is when the dates subsequently I resigned. Then in November, General Mkhwanazi, he helped me, assisted me to find a job, which that's what friends are for, as he was my friend. So that is correct. He's correct that after some few months not employed, he's the one who assisted me to find a job from a private sector company. In the private sector company, we are having a different division. My role was to head a forensic division in that private sector company. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Just tell us a little bit, you mentioned your suspension, was that at IPID?
Yes, yes, yes.
What were the reasons for that suspension, and did you subsequently resign from IPID as a result of the suspension, or was there some kind of disciplinary process or inquiry?
Yes, Chair, if I address that in paragraph 28 on my statement. I left IPID in 2018 after a misunderstanding with the executive director of IPID, which was Mr. Robert McBride. This misunderstanding arose from where I blew a whistle. Where I blew a whistle, I submitted a report to the then Minister General Pegicele to blow that whistle, what was happening within IPID, where implicated Mr. McBride. Then when I submitted that disclosure to the then Minister Pegicele, subsequently my report was 28 April 2018. Then 25 May, the very same report ended up in the hands of Mr. McBride, which he got very upset with the content where the report was implicating him in particular and Mr. Paul O'Sullivan. Then in that report, Mr. McBride got so upset with me and he suspended me immediately because of that disclosure which I made to the minister. Then in September 2018, it was going to be my departmental hearing for what I was suspended for. Then during that time on my hearing, it was 19 September 2018. Before my departmental hearing commenced, Mr. McBride arrived in the venue. It was in Sentin. He arrived at the venue, which it was a shock to all of us that what McBride is doing in the hearing, because he's the executive director. Then subsequently, Mr. McBride had a long chat with his legal team representing IPID. Then after that, my legal team were called in, and then they informed me that Mr. McBride is proposing a settlement agreement, that my hearing should not continue. He will withdraw all charges against me, then I should resign. So that is part of our confidential settlement agreement, which I accepted. So I left IPID after entering into that settlement agreement, where all charges Mr. McBride was charging me, he withdrew. Then I entered into settlement agreement with the IPID. That's how I left IPID, Chair.
So you deal, well, not in the same detail that you've not done verbally, but you reference that at paragraphs 29 and 30 of your statement.
That's correct, Chair.
So the effect of that settlement agreement was to sweep your whistleblower report under the carpet, is it?
Yes, it was a negotiations. Then I had no choice than to accept the settlement agreement and walk away.
Okay. And the alleged conduct of Mr. McBride was also then never inquired into or investigated?
Subsequently to that, Chair, the former Minister Begicele, subsequently he used my report as one of his reasons not to renew the contract of Mr. McBride. So my report was dealt with in the Portfolio Committee of Police, where they were deliberating the renewal of the contract of Mr. McBride. So my report was used in those deliberations why the contract of Mr. McBride is not going to be renewed. And it was also referred to the National Assembly, where they have to have a determination whether the contract of Mr. McBride should be renewed. So my report was used in that process, hence Mr. McBride hates me with passion as we speak. And Mr. Paul O'Sullivan. Thank you, Chair.
So that submission is not quite correct, that the effect of the settlement was to sweep your complaint about him under the carpet. It was subsequently used here in Parliament.
No, it's not correct. It was thoroughly ventilated, which consequently his contract was not renewed because of that report. And up to the extent that there were even criminal dockets that were registered, 2 criminal dockets that were registered. One was opened by a former Hawks boss of Gauteng, General Mokoteti, I think it's that surname. He opened a case of treason because of that report. And then there was also another second docket where Mr. McBride and Mr. Paul O'Sullivan and Mr. Sissogo, who is currently at IDEC, they were implicated in that report. And Mr. Paul O'Sullivan and Mr. McBride, subsequently, they were arrested. And in that docket, it was then said the IO needs to get a racketeering certificate. Then up until now, I think it's lying dust there with the NPA. Up until now, there's nothing happening. But they were arrested and subsequently waiting for a racketeering certificate through my report against them. So there were criminal dockets. Subsequently, Mr. McBride contracts were not renewed because of that report, sir.
And subsequently, did you make a more or a formal statement to the investigating officer of the police who was now investigating this matter?
Yes, I'm a key witness in those dockets. I submitted a statement.
And according to your knowledge, the matter is still pending?
The matters are still pending.
Can we now move on to your relationship with Minister Mkhunu? And you'll see that in your statement from paragraphs 18 to 30, and also 34 to 39.
SC, can I just check with Mr. Nkabinde? The matters that you say are still pending, are they part of the information that you reported to the then minister?
That is correct, Chair.
Okay.
Thank you, Honourable Chair. Now, you know by now, Mr. Nkabinde, that your relationship with Minister Mkhunu has come under some scrutiny in this honourable committee in relation to your appointment as his Chief of Staff. Now, we rewind a bit to when you first met him. There were allegations that you assisted Minister Mkhunu in relation to charges that were brought against him for defeating the ends of justice in relation to the murder of Xolani Nkosi. Do you recall that?
Yes, I recall.
Yes. Can you recall what these charges were, and then subsequently what was your role?
Thank you, Chair. It was around about a year of 2017 where we received a complaint from Minister Mkhunu at IPID. Yes. We received a complaint from Minister Mkhunu. In that complaint, Minister Mkhunu was complaining about a progress of a murder case of Xolani. Xolani was one of his security detail while he was a premier. That the murder of Xolani, he's not happy with the progress, that there are always clues leading to the perpetrators, but the police are not taking that direction. And in fact, they now regard him as a suspect. So he said he feel that, or he suspect that there's an harassment by the police, which were the hawks targeting him instead of pursuing the murder case. So he felt that there is something untoward the behavior of the police. Hence, he reported it in the ICD, since ICD were responsible for a conduct against the police. So that is a complaint we've received in IPID. That's how I got to know, but I will explain further until we got to him, we interviewed him and so forth, Chair.
The complaint from Minister Mkhunu, at that time he was no longer the Premier of KZN and didn't hold any particular office.
That's correct, Chair.
And that is at CMN2.
I found it, Chair.
You found it?
Yes.
So, Mr. Nkabinde, we're not going to go through the whole complaint, but you'll see in the first paragraph, Mr. Xolani Nkosi was shot dead in the evening of 17 July 2015 at Dumusani Mackay village, also known as Mshlatuzi village in Mpangeni in KZN. He worked at the office of the Premier at the time, serving in the security unit. So at the time when Minister Nkunu was the Premier of KZN.
That's correct, Chair.
This occurred. The case was then opened, but if you can just go to towards the end of the complaint letter by Minister Nkunu, he says in the middle of the page, a senior police officer, Shlongwani, I'm not sure of his rank, was later assigned to the case. I learned he found no reason. The court collapsed the case and got to a fresh start on the docket. During the period, I learned that fresh efforts were underway to get me arrested. Shlongwani was subsequently removed and the case was taken over by the then Hawks. Apparently, the Hawks got to the same mission where I was viewed as a suspect and were keen on the arrest. They held a meeting with a private investigator at some point, after which they were to work together. Since then, there is silence on the whole investigation on the deceased. Key puzzles on this matter, which are a source of grave concern, the abandonment of the case around the identified and arrested suspects, including the suspected trigger puller at Josini and the manner in which the whole case has been handled up to now. Lack of progress on the investigation on the murder despite so many investigators and investigations. So it seems to be the case that Minister Nkunu was complaining about the lack of progress on the investigation.
That's correct, Chair.
We understood from his evidence that at the time the DPP had already decided not to prosecute the matter or to prosecute him in the matter.
Chair, I think it's also important to elaborate the distinction because the DPP did not decline to prosecute a murder case. A murder case continued until the suspects were arrested and convicted and sentenced. So maybe I can give a brief summary of a defeating case. So after Minister Nkunu submitted this complaint to IPID, he's complaining about this police conduct. Subsequently to that, I was assigned to the docket to investigate that case, that complaint. Then during my investigation, including visiting the Hawks, because Hawks were the one dealing with the murder docket of Xolani, to try and ascertain about the complaint of Minister Nkunu. Then I then got to understand that there were a defeating the ends of justice case that it was registered against the police, which were working with a private investigator. The private investigator was appointed by Minister Nkunu. So there was a defeating the ends of justice that were registered, and subsequently, because the private investigator was hired by Minister Nkunu, subsequently Minister Nkunu was also a suspect in that defeating. Then when I go through all the documents, that defeating were already declined to prosecute by the DPP. By that time, it was 5 years ago. So now when I'm trying to figure out what is a valid reason now to reopen the case after the DPP declined, that is where we realized that there were no valid reason to reopen the case. So my investigation ended there, where I submitted a report and my recommendation to the Hawks that there is nothing wrong to reopen a case as long as they follow all legal prescripts, whereby there is any new evidence, there are any new information, and then they take it, the docket, back to the DPP to overturn the decision of that DPP. Those were my recommendation, that in fact, just follow the correct procedure, because the minister is feeling harassment. So just follow those processes. Where there is a need, the DPP will decide whether someone has to be accountable and so forth. So my investigation ended there. Up until now, I don't know what happened after that.
And what you described, Mr. Nkabinde, Mr. McBride, who was the executive director of IPID at the time, he had accompanied you to Minister Mkunu's house. Was he fully aware of the subsequent developments that you've described, and your recommendation to the Hawks that the investigation be discontinued?
Thank you, Chair. That visit, it was at an initial stage before I even commenced with my investigation. So if I can just highlight, Chair, about that visit. We received the complaint head office in Pretoria about the complaint of Minister Mkunu. After we've received that report, that complaint, and the complaint was assigned to me. Then I had a duty now to go and visit the complainant to get more details, because in the complaint letter, you will have to get more details and interview him thorough. So what happened at one stage, we were in KZN, and Mr. McBride was present in KZN for other work. Then Mr. McBride remembered about this complaint, which he assigned to me. Then he then said, we are here in KZN, let's Soma go and meet and interview Minister Mkunu, because Mr. McBride knew that that was an outstanding issue for me to go. And in fact, I'm the one who's supposed to go. Then Mr. McBride, then he said, no, let's go, I'll go with you. And then we went there, we interviewed him, then we done, and then Mr. McBride introduced formally to myself to Minister Mkunu. Then we exchanged numbers. Then this is Mr. Nkabinde, which I assigned your complaint to him. Going forward, he's the one who will liaise with you. So that's how that visit came about.
And just two questions arising from that. The one is that, or certainly at the time when you were with IPID, was that normal practice or usual practice for an investigator to visit a complainant to discuss the matter?
It is, even if when I was in the police, we are the one as service delivery, we have to go to the complainant.
And in this case, it was, even though he was now a former premier, wasn't a minister at the time, also a high-profile complainant.
Yes, I took it like that, why Mr. McBride is accompanying me. I took it in that level, that maybe it's a complaint from a high-profile person.
And Mr. McBride appeared to know Mr. Mkunu at the time?
Yeah, appeared to know each other.
And was Mr. McBride involved at any stage subsequent to your introduction to Mr. Mkunu and your further investigations and your report to the Hawks? Was Mr. McBride involved at all in?
No, he was never. He was never involved until I submitted a report to him. The report that I was alluding before.
Okay. And what happened to this private investigator? Is that normal practice or usual for? Well, at the time when he was appointed by Mr. Mkunu, he was a suspect. He He was a suspect. He complained subsequently about the conduct of the Hawks. But as a suspect, to appoint a private investigator for what purpose would that have been? To work with the police, to make sure that the police or IPID is doing their work? Can you comment on that?
Chair, if I can make it clear on that one, Minister Mkhunu was not a suspect. His bodyguard or a security personnel in his office was shot dead. He was not a suspect at all. And Minister Mkhunu was not happy with the progress of the investigation. He had an interest in the case because his staff member has been murdered. So hiring a private investigator, it was out of that interest that the progress is very slow. Probably the private investigator, working with the police, he might share some more light. So not as a suspect.
Well, Minister Nkunu had complained. If you look at the second page of his letter of complaint, he said, it's unnumbered, unfortunately. Shlongwane was subsequently removed, and the case was taken over by the then Hawks. Apparently, the Hawks got the same mission where I was viewed as a suspect.
Yes, that was basically his concerns, that his staff member made a case. The progress is very slow. There are several clues for police to follow to the arrest of perpetrators, but they are not interested to do that. In fact, they now view him as a suspect. So he did not hire, but even though I was not there, but when I look through the documentations, he did not hire a private investigator as a suspect. He hired a private investigator as a person who's got an interest in the case with a slow progress in the investigation.